Thank you so much for staying with us. Now, Pulse Events will be hosting another captivating event titled Cracking the Adult Code. Of course, it's all about insightful conversations for the curious. Now, Msimuko, one of the speakers, will take out the topic, of course, under the title Speaking to be Seen. He, of course, joins us now to speak about this and, of course, what it is all about. Harry, thank you so much for joining us. A very good evening to you.
Good evening. How are you doing?
Fantastic. Thank you.
Wonderful.
What does it mean to speak to be seen? And how does this concept relate to your personal branding, and self-expression? Yeah.
Well, self-expression, I would say, is a subset of self-branding, or personal branding, rather. Because branding essentially is the impression that people have when you don't have the opportunity to speak for yourself. So you see a logo, you have an impression. Or you hear somebody's name, you have an impression, and that's basically what a brand is. So self-expression helps create that. And speaking to be seen also plays a vital role, because a lot of times people can misunderstand or misconstrue who a person is and what they're about based on, other things. Could be appearance, could be, height, or so on and so forth. But being able to express yourself also helps clarify some of those misconceptions.
Very well. Now, what are some of the, common mistakes that people make, especially, when you're trying to speak to be seen, especially, and how can they perhaps overcome them? I personally also have, that kind of challenge at certain times.
Well, the first one that comes to mind is using aggression. Sometimes people think because you didn't respond, or you didn't respond by not doing anything, or you didn't just respond in the way that I wanted you to respond, therefore raising my voice or losing my temper might be a way to get myself to be seen or heard. And but at the end, that kind of emotionally closes a person. It actually puts up a barrier. So I think that's one of the most common misconceptions. The louder you are, the more audible you are. And I guess also trying to impress. Yes. I think that's another thing, because a lot of times people will say things like, dress to impress, or if first impressions last, and things like that. And people always focus on trying to put out an impressive impression as opposed to one of value. So what role does authenticity even play in effective communication? Because what I'm picking up now is that, of course, it's all about, you're not trying to speak to be seen, but obviously trying to speak in a manner that also, captures attention. Doesn't mean that you have to be loud or too soft, but a certain way. Just break that down for us, please. Well, it's really about just really expressing who you are. Right. So just to piggyback off my previous point, it's not trying to be something or someone you're not, and so on. Yeah. So, sorry, just repeat the last part of the question.
So authenticity.
Yeah. Yes, great. So when you're expressing yourself, people can actually pick up whether you're trying to be something that you're not. Yeah. So authenticity definitely plays a role. And I think a lot of times we miss out on the value of authenticity, because, again, that sets us apart. That gives us our unique brand. That also gives us the uniqueness to stand out. I mean, and instead of just fitting in with the crowd. Yeah. I mean, this would apply, for example, in job interviews. I mean, if everybody is going for the same position and they're all trying to fit a mold, that's not going to be really authentic, and they're not going to be able to stand out.
Absolutely. Yeah. So how then can individuals measure their success through communication, efforts in terms of trying to be seen or heard?
I guess the feedback that you receive. I mean, if you know that you've done what you can in terms of conveying the information that you have to. Right. And again, communication is not just limited to speaking. Yeah. It's also how you speak, your choice of words, and how you conduct or carry yourself, your tone, your pitch. So much goes into communication. That's right. And when you look at, and as you're interacting with someone, you can see the live feedback. If they're scratching their head and rolling their eyes to the left, you're like, they didn't get what I'm saying. And therefore you could reiterate or try and simplify. But if they're smiling and nodding or shouting amen, okay, you've hit the nail on the head. So looking out for that feedback. So it's not just about pushing out the information, but it's also about listening. What is the audience saying, or what is your audience communicating to you?
And it's also one thing to also know how to, project yourself or how to say to put out the message. So what are some of the tips you personally share for people to be able to effectively communicate, of course, and also to speak to be seen, as the title suggests? Yeah.
Well, I guess with speaking to be seen, the most important thing is, what are you trying to show? And for that, you really have to be in touch with who you are.
Right.
You know, understanding yourself. There's no way you can be authentic if you have no clue, you know, who you are. So that's the first line of communication, that self-discovery. And then when you can figure that out and appreciate it and understand the value it brings, then you can also authentically communicate to be seen. So that, you know, when you contribute, it's coming from a place where it's not just because it's the right thing to say, but it's part of my nature, it's part of who I am, you know, as opposed to the, you know, the cliches that they throw in job interviews. I'm a hardworking team player. We can say those words, but really, it's much better to be authentic because you know your character.
Very true. Lastly, just quickly, the tickets, the event, when is it all taking place and where can they all find this year?
It's all happening at the Village Garden Cafe on Friday night, this coming Friday. And it's, you can get tickets at that particular venue. Tickets are limited, so if you can call them or go there in advance, that will be to your advantage. Or you can call the number 081 633 0905.
Thank you so much, Harry.
And the email address, pulseeventsnam, one word, @gmail.com.
Very well. So thank you so much, Harry. Thank you so much. Of course, all the best with this event.
Thank you.
All right, that also brings us to the end of the show tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in. Talk of the